And this week I'm joined by Taylor Millard, who's written a piece for the magazine in this issue on an intersection of big tech, the European Union, and possibly even some divisions within the Trump administration itself. Thank you for joining us today, Taylor.
Thanks for letting me be here.
So Taylor, why don't you walk us through a little bit about this sort of complicated nexus that you've written about here?
It really, describing it as a complicated nexus is really the best way to look at it. What we have is the Trump administration is at war figuratively, of course, with the European Union regarding this domestic markets, or this Digital Markets Act, which is the EU's big tech regulations. It labeled 5 to 6 companies as gatekeepers, meaning they're the ones who have the biggest market share. And of course, what ended up happening was they had Apple, Google, Meta, Twitter, and then TikTok on their list of gatekeepers. Well, 4 of those 5 are American companies, so it was really looked at this big issue regarding American big tech, and what the DMA does is it was supposed to put limits on those companies so that then what could happen is it would promote European production, technological production, things like that. The Trump administration was not a fan of the DMA because, and Vice President J.D. Vance talked about this in his speech in France earlier this year, where he said that this is the type of thing that really stifles innovation and really prevents America and the EU from beating China when it comes to the artificial intelligence race. At the same time, even though there is this public-facing discussion and this public-facing complaints about the DMA from the Trump administration, Trump has criticized it too, then you go and you look at what's going on inside the Trump administration. And while you have people who are publicly against the DMA, privately, and there are public memos about this that were put out, they still have this war on big tech in the U.S., even as big tech has sidled up to the Trump administration. FTC Chair Christopher Ferguson discussed how much he really wanted to see discussions regarding keeping the head of keeping big tech from becoming far too big and doing the conservative censorship on social media and talking about the importance of making sure that free speech is a big thing. So that's the complicated discussion that's going on within the Trump administration, with the FTC, with the U.S. trade representative, Jamieson Greer, who has made some very public remarks about how the DMA is this bad idea and won't help anything. And that's what the Trump administration is facing right now, and kind of the conflicting messages that are being sent out to the EU and really to everybody else.
Well, it's interesting as you mention this, because you could imagine in an American context the Trump administration liking sort of a U.S.-only DMA, or at least something like that, because it does fit in with their basic critique of big tech. But they also don't like the European Union penalizing American companies, and they're trying to expand market access, and they're also doing some protectionist policies here at home. Sort of a complicated, it shows how complicated some of these issues and these different motivations can sort of become.
Yeah, especially when you look at what the FTC chair has said. He made a comment about how he is not in favor of the DMA, but then at the same time he said he would rather there be an American version of it, and America tackle the problem, quote unquote, of big tech. And when something gets too big, they want to crack down on it. You know, when you look at the antitrust case that is still going on against Google, the Trump administration, Trump 2.0, is continuing what Trump 1.0 and the Biden administration continued to do. You look at senators like Josh Hawley in Missouri, who is very anti-big tech and is very, I mean, he made a comment about how corporations have basically become the government and taken over the governmental power unless the government takes that back. So it's really complicated and really weird to see it happen with Republicans, because in the past they had been very light touch regulation and very, hey, let's let companies do what they need to do.
What have American free market advocates what have they had to say about this fight?
Well, they've actually used the words of J.D. Vance and kind of said, hey, Vance is correct on this. I talked to multiple people, whether it was Jennifer Huddleston from Cato Institute or Josh Withrow from the R Street Institute, who both said that if you put these restrictions on big tech, and if you break up big tech and slow them down and cause problems, that stifles innovation, and that prevents companies from advancing. You look at the way that Facebook and the way that Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it this week, the reason why they got so big is because they were innovative. They were successful. You look at things that were done, like 20 years ago, the main places that people were going to search for stuff was either AOL or Yahoo News or Yahoo or Alta Vista. None of those exist anymore, really. And if they do, they're just lower.
Legacy.
Yeah, they're legacy. They're not that big. And that's the big thing, is that these companies, Facebook, Google, Twitter, would not have become the innovators that they were if there wasn't light touch regulations that were out there. And so that's what the free market advocates have been saying, and have been saying that, hey, if you put further governors on this type of thing, you're going to see the U.S. lose this race with China when it comes to AI.
Thank you, Taylor. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can click here to read Taylor's article in our digital magazine.